Hello viewers. Welcome to the facts of the CCP's tyrannical persecution of Christians. I'm Link. 2023 was the final year of the CCP's 3-year total war against the Church of Almighty God. In its attempts to completely destroy and ban the Church of Almighty God, turn China into an atheist zone, and achieve its evil goal of holding power forever, the CCP persecuted Christians even more frantically. Arrest operations across the country continued to intensify, with arrests being made almost every month and every day. They spared no one, not even elderly Christians in their 70s and 80s. In just 2 days, from August 25th to 26th, at least 170 Christians were arrested across 4 counties in Nanyang City, Henan Province. Among them were 1 person in her 80s and 10 in their 70s. They were all subjected to varying degrees of torture, and the methods of abuse were extremely brutal and despicable. Recently, we interviewed one of these Christians, Sju Lan. She was 78 years old at the time of her arrest. To force Sju Lan to give up information on the church, the CCP police tortured her for 3 whole days. They brutally beat her head and face, forced her to drink mustard water, and shocked her with an electric baton. They even forced the elderly Sju Lan to watch pornographic videos and sexually harassed her using foul language. The police's brutal violence left indelible scars on both her body and soul. In this episode, we'll take a closer look at Sju Lan's scarring experience of persecution.
It
was a little after 11 a.m. on August 25th, 2023. I had just finished a gathering and was leaving a sister's home. I had only gone down 2 flights of stairs when 2 plainclothes police officers suddenly cornered me in the stairwell. Without showing any identification, they tried to force me to take them to the home where the gathering had been held. I asked them, "Who are you?" One of the officers said fiercely, "Still not cooperating, huh?" With that, he slapped me twice across the face. The slaps left me completely dazed. When I refused to take them to the sister's home, the police snatched my bag like common thugs, handcuffed me, and covered my head with a brown paper bag. Disregarding my age and limited mobility, they forcibly dragged me downstairs and shoved me into a car. I couldn't see anything on the way. It felt like I had been grabbed by 2 demons and was being dragged to hell.
The police never show their ID when arresting Christians. They shoved a hood over Sju Lan's head and hauled her away like they were bandits kidnapping someone. They didn't take her to a police station. Instead, they took her straight to a hotel and interrogated her in their own secret black jail. On the same day, a brother and a sister who had been at a gathering with Sju Lan were also arrested and brought there. Sju Lan later learned that the home where they had gathered had been under secret police surveillance for a long time.
It wasn't until we entered a hotel room that they finally took off my hood. Then, 2 female officers strip searched me. Only after finding nothing did they let me get dressed. Next, 3 male officers began to interrogate me. They twisted my arms behind my back, handcuffed me, and shackled my legs. They made me stand without letting me lean against the wall. One officer forced my chin up with his fist, glared at me and threatened, "Look at me. If you don't come clean today, I'll show you what I'm capable of." Then they repeatedly pressured me to give up church information and sell out my brothers and sisters. I refused to speak. Furious, the 3 officers took turns beating me. One slapped me hard on both sides of my face. Another rolled up the brown paper bag and beat my face with it, while the third grabbed a black rubber belt and violently whipped my head and face. I saw stars from the beating immediately. My face and ears burned with pain. And it felt like my teeth had been knocked out. Since my hands were cuffed behind me, all I could do was bend over and lower my head to dodge the blows. But a heavy-set officer yanked my hair back hard, forcing my head up so they could keep whipping my face. The three of them ganged up to torture me. When one got tired, another would take over. As they beat me, they kept interrogating me fiercely. Who's your church leader? How many people are in the church? Whose homes do you know? Talk. I said, I don't know. That made them beat me even more frantically. The heavy-set officer pulling my hair from behind would also whip my back hard with something from time to time. They tortured me like this for over an hour. I was beaten so badly that I felt dizzy and my ears were ringing. My head and face were in agony, and my heart clenched so tight I could barely breathe. The pain was unbearable. The officer in charge yelled at me. My mom and grandma are younger than you, but you believe in Almighty God, so no matter how old you are, we'll make you suffer and teach you a lesson. Right now, the state considers you believers in Almighty God to be major criminals. This is the most serious offense, worse than gambling or drug trafficking, and you're treated the same as murderers. I thought to myself, I just believe in God. I haven't broken any laws or committed any crime. Yet you three police officers are torturing a woman of almost 80 like this. Are you even human? You are just a pack of evil demons. In my heart, I hated this pack of evil demons. After that, they kept on interrogating me. Seeing that I still wouldn't give them anything, one officer said fiercely, "You think you're some kind of martyr, huh? You really think you can hold out at your age? Since you're stubborn, let's see who's tougher. You'll find out what I'm capable of before long." With that, he grabbed an electric baton and viciously shocked my thighs. My thighs instantly felt a piercing, needle-like pain, and my body began to shake and convulse uncontrollably. With every shock, my heart trembled with pain, feeling like it was being squeezed into a tight ball. After several shocks, the electric baton suddenly failed. So they grabbed another one and kept shocking me. Before long, the new baton also failed. The officer said, bewildered, "This thing was working just fine. We were just using it yesterday. Why'd it die on us today?" Since they couldn't shock me any longer, they thought of other ways to torture me. Shortly after, the heavyset officer brought some horseradish paste. It looked like green mustard, but it was much spicier and more pungent than both chili and mustard. They held me down and forcefully tried to squeeze the paste into my mouth. I clenched my jaw shut and spat it out. So they beat me again. Next, they mixed a packet of mustard powder with half a bottle of water, getting ready to force it down my throat. One officer pried my mouth open. and roughly poured the mustard water in. Afraid I would spit it out, another officer clamped a towel tightly over my mouth. At the same time, he yanked my hair back hard, forcing my head up and making me swallow the mustard water. After they were done, the 3 officers let go, and I collapsed to the floor. My stomach burned, and I felt waves of nausea. I tried to throw up, but I couldn't. I was in such agony that I curled up in a ball on the floor, breaking out in a cold sweat all over. Seeing the sweat on my face, an officer actually sneered. "Feeling a little warm? Sweating, are we? Let me take care of that for you." With that, he grabbed my arms and hauled me to my feet. My hands were still cuffed behind my back, and I was in leg shackles, so I could barely move. Still, they dragged me into the bathroom. They turned the shower on full blast and drenched me in cold water. Starting with my head. Then they pulled my collar open and poured water down my shirt. One of them even saying lewdly, "Ha, you're not even wearing a bra." The bone-chilling water made me lose my footing, and I slumped to the floor. After about 10 minutes of this, they switched to scalding hot water and started burning me with it. They kept alternating between cold and hot water, torturing me for over half an hour. I felt like a slug being sprinkled with salt. All I could do was writhe on the floor trying to dodge the water. The mental torment was unbearable.
To force Sju Lan to hand over information about the church and sell out other Christians, the police tortured her for at least 5 or 6 hours, from around 3 or 4 in the afternoon until after 9 at night. They not only subjected her to electric shocks, but also forced her to drink mustard water when she hadn't had a single drop to drink, and repeatedly doused her with freezing and scalding water. It wasn't until nearly 10 p.m. that the police finally dragged the elderly Sju Lan out of the bathroom. By then she was in unbearable agony, completely soaked and utterly drained of strength. Despite this, the police continued to torture her.
Water was dripping from my clothes, but the police forced me to stand directly under the air conditioner. They turned the temperature way down and blasted the cold air right at me. I was shivering uncontrollably from the cold. They also took turns watching me in 2-man shifts. I was so exhausted from standing, but if I moved even a little or leaned against the wall, they would yell at me. Just like that. I stood handcuffed and in leg shackles with the cold air blasting me until 7 or 8 the next morning. I stood there for over 10 hours straight. My feet and legs were severely swollen and aching. And due to the cold air, I was dizzy and my vision started to go black. All my joints felt like they were frozen stiff. It was absolutely unbearable. The next morning, the police tried to force me to squat. But because I'd had surgery on one leg and couldn't bend it, I really couldn't do it. So when they realized this, they just made me stand still. Then they started interrogating me again. Who is the church leader? Where do you gather? They also tried to force me to give up information on my brothers and sisters. When I didn't answer, they slapped my face hard and grabbed the electric baton again to shock my calves. I was shocked so hard I lost my balance and fell, but they still kept shocking me. I tried to dodge away in a panic, but they just jabbed me all over with the baton. After a while, the baton failed again. Using the same method from the day before, they forced me to drink another bottle of mustard water. Then they dragged me back under the shower and repeatedly doused me with cold and scalding hot water in turn. My hands were cuffed behind my back the whole time. Because I kept struggling, the handcuffs got tighter and tighter, cutting deeper and deeper into my flesh until the pain was unbearable. The 3 officers tortured me for at least another 2 hours. The agony was so intense, I wished I were dead. I needed to use the bathroom, but they forced me to urinate in my pants. They also played a pornographic video on a phone and forced me to watch. At first, I didn't know what they were showing me, but one officer kept saying filthy things to me, while the others laughed lewdly. While the video was playing, they kept taunting me, repeatedly asking, "You know about this stuff, right?" The things they said were so disgusting, so vile, I can't even describe them. Seeing how wicked they were made my stomach turn. The CCP police are nothing but thugs, demons, beasts in human clothing. They humiliated me and even beat me so brutally. The hatred in my heart was overwhelming. The police interrogated me under torture for 2 days straight. They didn't give me a single bite of food or a drop of water, and they forced me to drink mustard water twice. On the second night, they forced me to stand under the freezing air conditioner all night again. I was so cold and shivering uncontrollably. My whole body ached terribly, and the pain in my stomach was excruciating. By the morning of the 3rd day, the pain in my stomach was unbearable. My heart was pounding hard. I had pain and tightness in my chest and could barely breathe. I was just groaning in pain. The heavyset officer snapped at me. "What's wrong? You dying?" I didn't answer. The police were afraid my family would hold them responsible if I died in the hotel, so they reluctantly called for a doctor. After a quick checkup and taking my blood pressure, the doctor stressed twice, "This woman's blood pressure is really low." The police didn't say a word. After that, they just had a nurse give me 2 stomach pills, and that was it. I was already weak and utterly exhausted from the torture, but the police still wouldn't let me off. They kept trying to force me to give up information about the church. One of them glared angrily at me and threatened, "Are you going to talk or not? Your grandson is about to take the civil service exam. If you don't confess your religious activities, he'll be implicated because of you. His future will be ruined." I still didn't answer. One officer grabbed the black rubber belt again and whipped my head and face with it hard. He also rolled up the brown paper bag and beat my face with it. My body was almost at its breaking point. With every strike, my heart seized up in pain. It was agonizing. By the afternoon of the third day, my hands had already been cuffed behind my back for 3 days straight. They took the cuffs off and cuffed my hands in the front. That's when I saw that both my hands were incredibly swollen, and my wrists were bruised a dark purple where the cuffs had cut into them. Even the slightest movement sent a throbbing pain through them.
During 3 consecutive days of torture, the police denied Sju Lan any food or water. They punished her by forcing her to stand in the cold air, deprived her of sleep, and refused to let her use the bathroom, forcing her to urinate in her pants. For Sju Lan, those 3 days were like being in hell. Every single second was pure agony. On the 4th day, the police brought out photos of some brothers and sisters and demanded that Sju Lan identify them. They also pressured her again to sell out the church leader. She still adamantly refused to sell anyone out. The police were furious, but they could see that Sju Lan was extremely weak, and they feared being held responsible if she died. So, they finally stopped the interrogation and torture.
On the 6th day, the police saw my face was swollen beyond recognition and had turned a dark purple. They put on a show of concern, bringing potato slices to put on my face, saying it would reduce the swelling. I told them I didn't need it, but they held me down and put the slices on my face anyway before leaving. Seeing the CCP police for what they truly were filled me with hatred for them. I thought to myself, what is this? You beat me to a pulp, and now you're afraid someone will see the bruises, so you slap potato slices on my face to reduce the swelling? You're so sinister, it's disgusting. When they returned, the heavyset officer even taunted me, saying, "Why's your face so dark? Didn't you wash it?" On the 7th day, my condition was getting worse and worse. The police were afraid I would die in the hotel, so they had my son bail me out. By then, the handcuffs had cut so deep into my flesh, and my hands and wrists were so swollen and purple that they couldn't even get the cuffs off. They had to call in an officer from the Criminal Investigation Brigade, who used a special iron-cutting tool to saw the handcuffs off. As they were cutting, the vibration from the tool made my wrists bleed nonstop. The pain was excruciating. Before they let me go, an officer threatened my son. He said, "We beat her pretty badly. If anything happens to her after she gets home, don't you come looking for us. In China, if we beat a believer in Almighty God to death, we get off scot-free. There's no one you can complain to. That's the law in China." The CCP police even pinned the absurd charge of using a Shijiao organization to undermine law enforcement on me. I'm an old woman. All I do is believe in God and attend gatherings. And for that, they arrested me and beat me like this. What law enforcement did I undermine? After I got home, the police continued to restrict my freedom. They forbade me from leaving the area for a year and said they could summon me at any time, ordering me to be on call 24/7. During those 7 days I was detained, the police never once let me sleep. I was delirious with exhaustion. That, coupled with the torture, made my whole body ache, like it was falling apart. I was on the verge of a complete breakdown. When I got home and looked in the mirror, I was horrified by what I saw. Except for my eyes, my entire face and neck were a deep, dark purple. There wasn't a single unbruised spot. It was darkest around my eye sockets and on both sides of my nose. It took over a month for the bruises to slowly fade. My teeth ached so badly from the beating that I couldn't bite down on anything. For a long time, I couldn't eat solid food and could only drink a little congee. I also had multiple burn marks, each the size of a fingernail, where they'd shocked me. Those took more than 10 days to disappear. My wrists ached for at least 6 months. And to this day, I still can't do any work that's even slightly strenuous. My physical and mental health used to be very good. But after the torture, my health has been significantly worse. My ears ring constantly. My eardrums might be damaged. The back of my head and my scalp often throb with pain, and my scalp feels numb. My mind is always foggy. These are all after effects from them beating my head and yanking my hair. Because they forced me to drink mustard water, I have stomach problems and constant diarrhea. I often have no appetite, and I eat much less than I used to. My heart often races, and sometimes the pain in my chest is so bad I can't breathe. I went to the hospital, and they diagnosed me with a heart condition. Ever since I was released, I've had to be on constant medication to just live a somewhat normal life. Every time I remember the police arresting and torturing me, I can't sleep. Even when I do manage to drift off, I have nightmares of them arresting me and beating me. My husband often hears me screaming when I have nightmares. Even though I'd been tortured so badly, the CCP police still wouldn't leave me alone. They came to my house to harass me multiple times, interrogating me about whether I still had any books of God's words. Sometimes they'd bring photos of Christians and pressure me to identify the leaders or supervisors. I always told them I didn't recognize them and knew nothing. The police would warn me fiercely, "Don't even think about continuing to believe in God. In China, you can forget about believing. We'll find every last one of you. From now on, we can monitor whoever you go to see and whoever comes to your house. None of you can escape. We'll arrest you all." Afraid I'd be arrested again, my family started to monitor me and restrict my faith. I couldn't contact my brothers and sisters or live church life. I felt like I was living in a prison. The pain and torment were unbearable.
The elderly are a vulnerable group who should be respected and protected by society. In China, however, the vulnerable are left unprotected, while believers in God are the most discriminated against and suppressed group. They face the constant threat of arrest and persecution by the CCP, suffering inhumane physical abuse and mental torment, and are even sentenced to prison or persecuted to death. Of the elderly Christians arrested at the same time as Sju Lan, at least 9 were sentenced to prison. 72-year-old Lin Hua was sentenced to 10 months for upholding her faith. During her detention, Lin Hua was tortured by the police until she developed cerebral thrombosis. She couldn't even walk and needed a wheelchair to get around. Her family bailed her out to get medical treatment at home. But the CCP police, with no regard for whether she lived or died, arrested her again and threw her back in prison before she had recovered. Ultimately, Lin Hua's condition worsened from the prolonged torture, and she passed away shortly after her release. Another woman in her 60s was beaten and sexually abused after being arrested. The police forcibly lifted her shirt and burned her nipples and stomach with a lighter. They pulled off her pants and dripped molten wax onto her knees. The CCP doesn't treat Christians like human beings, brutally persecuting them regardless of age. Today, the CCP's persecution of Christians continues, and we'll carry on following and reporting on what they are truly going through. Thank you for watching. That's all for today's program. Stay tuned to the new age and stay tuned to the facts of the CCP's tyrannical persecution of Christians. We'll see you in the next episode.